So you want to get into government contracting. I'm Justin Thacker with SC&H here to give you a little bit of background about what are some of the difficulties of working with the federal government. So previously I spoke about some of the benefits of working with the federal government. Now I want to talk about the flip side and what are some of the difficulties in working with the federal government. So companies can face many challenges really when working with the federal government because there are various numbers of contracts that can be obtained through the federal government, and really knowing which type of contract that that will be beneficial for you and beneficial for your company can be difficult. Each company is unique, and we definitely recommend that setting your business strategies appropriately to understand the types of contracts that will benefit you the most would be in your best interest. Because definitely contractors, when you're doing business with the federal government, you have to comply with an inordinate number of rules and regulations. The federal government conducts the acquisition of supplies and services under the Federal Acquisition Regulation, or the FAR, which Danny previously touched on. And then they also do it under the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation, which is DFARS for the DoD contracts. So companies that are doing business with the federal government, you must comply with either the FAR or DFARS. In certain cases, it's both. And basically, you also need to ensure that your subcontractors are in compliance with the same thing. So you're responsible for yourselves as well as anyone that is conducting business for you. So companies that work with the federal government, really, in addition to complying with the FAR and DFARS, you're required to comply with certain labor standards that are out there. Some of the labor standards that are out there, you have the McNamara-O'Hara Service Contract Act, you have the mandatory contract work hours, and you have the OSHA safety standards. So there definitely is a lot of oversight when working with the federal government. There's a lot of rules, there's a lot of regulations, and there's a lot of things that you need to be mindful of when you're doing business with the federal government. But really, a lot of the contracts or working with the federal government, right? You're using taxpayer dollars. So these contracts are being funded with taxpayer dollars. So many agencies will want to make sure that the money is being spent appropriately. So therefore, there's going to be many requirements that the federal government will implement just to ensure that you are complying with certain regulations. So, the federal government will implement things such as reviews or audits of company financial statements. You also have what is called an incurred claim cost and indirect rates submission. And so some of these things can be costly, especially if depending on the types of contracts that you're dealing with, these things can be costly, and it can be inconvenient for you and your staff. But really, the company, if you want to do business with the federal government, you must comply. You must comply with these standards, and that's one way really of being successful there. So also many companies that work with the federal government have a concentrated revenue with the particular agency or a particular department, and any cancellation or modification of a significant contract or subcontract could really could adversely affect the financial condition and results of your operations in the short or the long term. So the federal government, those contracts, if they want to, the federal government can terminate those contracts at any time for convenience. And they really don't necessarily have to give you notice for that. So that could potentially impact you if your revenue is concentrated in a particular area. So, although there are many benefits of working with the government, you do want to be mindful of the opposite. And there are some downfalls with working with the federal government.